Well, it's so good to catch up with Janet Coit again, the Director of Department of Environmental Management. It's a big day here in Rhode Island for environmental and energy leaders. It's so different throughout the world in terms of resilience and sustainability and protection of natural resources. As you think of Rhode Island, what are those most important resources that we've come together here today to talk about and protect?
So one of the things I love about Rhode Island is the incredible diversity we have in a small state. So I'm glad you asked me that question, because I was thinking with our last speaker, Sam Waterston, that when people love a place, a natural area, it really drives them to be an advocate and protect the environment. So I think in Rhode Island, we're talking obviously about the coast, our salt marshes, but we're talking about all our rivers, which are all really coastal rivers that wind through all of our communities with floodplains and important roles to play. We're talking about our forests. We are 60% forested. We're talking about freshwater wetlands and small vernal pools. We're talking about big salt ponds, which are our coastal lagoons and barrier beaches. We're talking about our beautiful bay. So we have an embarrassment of riches, but they're very vulnerable. And one of the things that I've been most struck with since I've had my job as DEM director is that I used to think if we conserved an area, if we protected it from development, we were protecting it. And now we see that coastal areas that have been conserved are being overwhelmed through sea level rise, through storm surge. Now we see that areas that are surrounded by conservation lands are still having water quality issues. So we can't pretend that just protecting a piece of land is actually saving it.
The final answer, and I think a lot about farmland, and which is flourishing in Rhode Island. Dr. Weber.
I'm just curious what your initiatives are looking like over, say, the next 5 years, and how they are going to play out to a longer-term vision.
Well, that is a very large question. We have a strategic plan that's available on our website that has 6 pillars, and one is confronting climate change, and that's cross-cutting on all of our regulatory programs, on our land and water conservation, our air resources, what we're doing to look at how climate change affects wildlife and green corridors. So that's a big overarching priority. Our other priorities, as you might imagine, are they're maintaining outdoor recreation facilities so that Rhode Islanders have a safe and enjoyable place to enjoy the outdoors. They're ensuring that we have clean water and focusing very hard on stormwater, because that's an area, both non-point and point source pollution, that we still have a lot of work to do. They're about protecting healthy communities and remediating industrial sites. So there's sort of broad categories under which our responsibility for clean water, clean air, cleaning up waste sites, and trying to make sure every Rhode Islander can enjoy the bay, the parks, an opportunity to recreate and be healthy, and grateful to be outdoors.
And the beach.
And go to the beach. And I think the access, one of the things we have in Rhode Island, in this small, dense state of ours, is an opportunity to give everyone access to the bay, to a park, to the beach.
Ken.
Janet, for the benefit of our global audience, the Governor Raimondo just recently signed into law historic legislation adopting Lead for Neighborhood Development at Sites, which is a Sustainable Sites Initiative, as public policy. Now, your agency and you will be somewhat at the center of the nexus of that. Yeah. What do you see, what does that portend for the state and for you and the people of Rhode Island?
So it's exciting when Rhode Island is at the forefront of something, and we, of course, have the first in the nation's offshore wind turbines that are generating energy for the U.S., first in the nation, not the world. But on this, we've worked very closely with Ken and the the Green Buildings Council, and the idea of looking not just at the building, but at the entire site and making sure we're using best practices and green design is something that I think we can set an example, and I'd like to see government set an example. And we have this historic legislation that just passed that starts with some pilot programs. So for me, it means trying to look at some of our DM facilities and working with UCAN and others to make sure that we can be very, very smart about demonstrating to people what can be done, how to do it, and that it's affordable.
Janet, one last thing. So I don't know that people always understand the role DEM plays from an economic point of view. And that can include cleaning up brownstones, right? Getting tracks ready for production and development. And when you think about a Mr. Waterston coming here and saying, hey, we all have to participate. I think one of the things Rhode Islanders have done is they have supported DEM and your work around the economy, and they recognize that a lot of what you spend has a material, sometimes $6 to 1 return on investment.
There are so many aspects to the Department of Environmental Management in Rhode Island that benefits the economy. So let me just talk about 3 or 4. Because, so you started with, when we remediate and put back to use a former industrial site that's contaminated, we not only have jobs associated with that cleanup, but we have permanent jobs associated with the redevelopment. It might be redeveloped for renewable energy, then we might have that benefit, green energy. It might be redeveloped for housing, so just putting these sites back to use and cleaning them up are both short-term and long-term jobs. We oversee fisheries. We just heard talk about that. So we're trying to maintain fishing ports, not let those areas gentrify, maintain that historic activity here, but sustainably manage our fisheries. That is a big business here. We had over $100 million worth of fish landed here last year. We oversee agriculture. We want to promote local farming. But on even cleaning up water, there's both the gray infrastructure that we've built, the huge combined sewer overflow project. We've upgraded all our wastewater treatment facilities. Those are jobs when you construct them, but they've also meant we have a cleaner bay and we're reopening areas to shellfish. We have thousands of cohoggers who are making a living off the bay. And then we also see that with outdoor recreation, our wonderful recreational fishing, our marine industry, just having cleaner waterways is very important to the quality of our environment and many of our key industries.
Oh, it's
Jump in for a second. Have you also added the health benefits, because that's also a big economic factor that people often don't add?
Yes. Thank you for saying that, because whether it's air quality and the work we're doing to try to reduce ozone or CO2, or it's getting the pathogens out of the bay, or it's confronting climate change. We have a program, cleaning the brownfield. We have a program where we're trying to promote urban trees. All of these things end up having public health benefits that we should quantify and talk about more, so I really appreciate you raising that.
Well, and it's a great point. There was just a national, in the United States, report, first data on renewables saving thousands of lives. Thousands of lives. And of course, your most difficult job is sitting between two Gabby politicians and being the two. You did a wonderful job. I don't envy you.
I should sit on the end because I was, yeah. So